Humans of the Cardboard, welcome back yet again. We're covering more Phantom Nightmare news. Konami has been dropping literally one card every day for like this entire week. It's been cool because I like its constant news. Nothing's been terrible. It's actually been like some interesting cards here and there. We got the Fusion Hamster yesterday. We got the new Synchro that seems like almost just straight Centurion support 2 days ago, and so on and so forth. So it's cool. We still, I think, are sitting around 30, maybe just under 30 cards at this card's reveal left in the set, and the set is going to be out in the OCG in a week. It's literally going to be out. So in the next 4 or 5 days, we're going to have the final 30 cards revealed for this set. So stay tuned for that. But let's get into this new card. This is Rain Destruction on your opponent with Iron Thunderhammer. The name is Iron Thunderhammer. It's a card that has Tiamattan, Iron Dragon Tiamattan in the artwork, so you can pretty much guess that it's going to be based off of column effects. So we'll see. Okay, it's a counter trap, so very interesting. Some of the most powerful traps in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh are counter traps, probably counter traps and continuouses, because continuouses can be floodgates not more often than not, but when you see them in the metagame, they are. Okay. When a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated on the field, pay half your life points, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then destroy all cards in the spell and trap zone and monster zones in its same column. Okay. Interesting. Nothing too insane here. I mean, listen, it's a counter trap. I don't know what we're expecting. You know, when it comes to, I think the biggest thing here to keep in mind is when we talk about counter traps that are not searchable, right? Generic counter traps. The big question you have to ask yourself is it better than a Solemn? Does it power creep either Solemn Strike or Solemn Judgment? And I think the answer here is not necessarily, but it's not that much worse. I mean, to be honest, it's not quite that much worse than Solemn Judgment. I mean, Solemn Strike, Solemn Strike kind of does what it does, but probably better, right? You're paying 4k life points if it's the first time you're paying life points in a duel versus 15 for Strike. Plus Strike can negate some inherent summons as well, so it kind of has that over this card. But this card stops spell and trap cards, so it's actually pretty good. It covers probably the best part of Solemn Strike, which is the monster negate. But it's only on field. Keep that in mind as well. So it's covering like the meat of Solemn Strike, but not the potatoes. There's the other side of that isn't getting covered there. And then for Solemn Judgment, it kind of does the same thing, right? It gets the spell and trap negate, but it doesn't negate normal summons and inherent summons. So the bigger thing for Solemn Judgment, I would say for modern day Yu-Gi-Oh is the spell and trap negate, because you pretty much play that card as like an insurance policy so that your deck, if it is weaker to certain board breakers, certain like one card board, handlers, you're able to counter those with a Solemn Judgment. This card also kind of handles that if it's a spell and trap. So cool. I mean, I think this card kind of falls in the middle. Now, the weird part is once you get past that text, I almost wish this didn't even have this bonus text, because I feel like if anything, this last little line of text here keeps this card from ever being like a true meta staple, because then I feel like people can actually play into this card a little bit better. And by that, I mean they can kind of punish you a little bit, because what they can do, because this destroys any card in the same column, which means ideally you would be siding this card going first, which means like a Judgment, right? And that's another, it's another thing where, being somebody who has playing like trap decks, right? And I'm scared of the Harpies, Feather Dusters of the world, right? The Twin Twisters, the Lightning Storms, the whatever, the Evenly Matches, right? I would sometimes side Solemn Judgment because I need to handle those. I would need to just up my chances of being able to like not auto lose to one of those cards. Now we can side 6 copies, but here's where the things get interesting, right? Is if they're playing into your board, if you're going second. Now, ideally, they wouldn't know what you're playing this card and that you're not searching it. If you're ever seeing this card, it's being hard drawn. But if they think you might have it, they may try to play around it in a certain way, because in a lot of situations, they don't have to do anything different. They just need to summon into this card's column. and like if they're going to force or not into this card's column, but into a column of another piece of your end board. That way, if you are going to negate the card or whatever, if they are going to force it out with a lightning storm, but they activate the lightning storm in the column of another back row, or, you know, just for example, let's say you're playing, what's a good, I guess you could say Labyrinth, like you side this card in Labyrinth because you're worried about board breakers, but then they summon this to a column that your Lady Labyrinth is in. When you have to negate and destroy, then you have to destroy your own Lady Labyrinth as well. And if there's also a back row there, you may be like destroying 2 of your own cards. So they can kind of play into this card if they know it, but that's only if this card ever were to be fringe meta staple. People would play into it in that fashion. Otherwise, I don't think that's a big an issue. Like, to be honest, I don't think it'll be that big of an issue, but that's why I think this card won't ever be like an absolute meta staple. But it is an interesting card. I think you can kind of throw it. Like, listen, I think at the end of the day, does it completely power creep Judgment and Strike? No. Do I think it's like borderline just as good because it gets probably the single best effect in Solemn Strike in being able to negate a monster effect on the field? Yes, because now this card is like Judgment, but a little bit better going second, right? Because setting a monster negate that destroys into a board going second is now way better, right? Than just Solemn Judgment, but also still has the potential to negate board breakers and power spells and traps at the same time. So it kind of gets the 2 best effects from Solemn Judgment or Strike, but you know, there are other effects that this card doesn't encapsulate, definitely are missing here. So I think it just gets kind of thrown into that pool. If you ever liked Solemn Strike and Judgment, I think anytime you consider playing them now, you should also look at this card, and this should be a consideration as well. Or if you're like me, and sometimes you play a back row deck that you're really terrified of those back row wipes, or you play a deck that just gets bodied by Dark Ruler and you have 1,000,001 card combos or whatever, these are pretty good cards as well to save you from those one single spell cards that just kind of like handle your whole board. And you can play 6 of them with Solemn Judgment now. So it's really cool. Like, honestly, I think this card's solid. I don't think we'll see a ton of play because I think we're past the point where like Strike and Judgment are going to see a lot of play everywhere. But I do think there could be a specific niche for it in certain decks. So yeah, that's my overall thought on this card. Let me know in the comment section down below your idea here. On this card, do you think I think that's the biggest question, is how does it stack up to the Solemns? Where do you think it stacks up versus them? Do you think it's better? Do you think it's worse? Where do you land on it? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comments down there, because, you know, it's a cool card, cool generic card to add to the set, especially since we already got a generic trap card that's actually pretty decent in this set. So 2 generically decent traps is pretty cool. But I'm out of here. Thank you so much for watching as always. Let me know your thoughts down below. I will keep you posted on any more Phantom Nightmare reveals that come out in the next like 5 days, because there's going to be a ton of them. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you then. Peace.